One afternoon, Donald and Douglas were resting at the sheds after a hard day's work. Oh, Donny, sighed Douglas, it'd be a wee nice to rest on my wheels for a little bit. Same, Dougie, replied Donald. But have you known the vehicles are getting competitive nowadays? Aye, agreed Douglas, telling us to rip off our rails and replace them with roads. That's the last thing on my mind. Their conversation was cut short by the sound of a horn. Oh no, sighed Donald. It can't be Derek. Sure enough, Derek arrived, hauling a long train of logs. But he was in such a hurry. Slow down, called the twins. Derek quickly slammed on his brakes and stopped, albeit too quickly. The logs dropped out of the flatbeds and were now blocking the track Douglas was on. Oh, huffed the twins, now looky what you have done. Worse still, Derek had slipped his brakes on hard, so he couldn't move. Oh, sorry, chaps, he said quickly. Maybe we could wait for help, but... no need, huffed Douglas. Watch this. And they watched as he moved closer to the logs. With heavy puffing and wheels slip, Douglas pushed the logs clear from the tracks. And soon, they were all free. Atta boy, Dougie, congratulated Donald. Quite, agreed the driver. What would we do without you Scots? Douglas sizzled happily as Donald took Derek away to the works. Later, Derek was at the works having his brakes checked. He was still thinking about that accident, along with Donald and Douglas. I don't think they'll like me anymore, even after what I've caused them, he sighed. Cheer up, old chap, comforted his driver. At least you didn't damage your engine this time. Derek smiled, but he still felt he let everyone down. Emily was nearby collecting some passengers. Hello, Derek, she said kindly. What on earth's the matter? Derek sighed and explained everything. Emily felt sorry for him. Cheer up, she said. I'm sure they'll forgive you sooner or later. You just have to prove it. Goodbye for now, she called as she puffed away. Hearing this, Derek began to feel a little better. The very next day, Donald and Douglas were preparing a very heavy train to take. Keep it steady, doggy, called Donald. This be heavy. Heave to, whistled Douglas in return. Just then, some lorries stood by. Oh, you there, one called out. We got this precious load of gravel to go to the docks. We're heading to the docks too with this load, Donald replied. You can't imagine how we get there first before you, snapped another lorry. Oh, cried Douglas. We'd like to see you try. All right, shouted the lorry. Let's have a race. Whoever gets there first has to admit that roads or rails are better. We'll win by a long shot. Not if we have anything to say about it, replied Donald. The race was agreed, and everyone waited for the signal. And as soon as it dropped, the race was on. Let's go, whistled Donald to Douglas, who puffed as hard as they could. The lorries, however, had lighter loads, so they drew in front. Catch us if you can, they called out, laughing. The twins puffed and pulled as hard as they could. The trucks, hearing the race, helped too by pushing onwards. Faster, faster, they cried. We want to win too. The The twins couldn't help but give a small smile to them. And soon they found themselves catching up to the lorries. Hurry, 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 they called, pretending to be like Gordon. The lorries only growled in response. Soon the twins approached Gordon's hill. It was more steeper than they thought. Give more steam, Donald whistled. I'm nearly out of water, Douglas called back. The twins were so caught up with the race, they had forgotten to take on more water. The driver and fireman could not do anything but look at the gauges. Then suddenly, with a whoosh of steam, Douglas slowed down, right to a standstill. Oh no, he wheezed. I've run out already. Donald heard him and knew he couldn't start the train on his own. It was then that they heard familiar honking. The lorries were passing and were now ahead of them. The twins had thought they had lost the race until they heard a familiar horn. Derek was coming up the hill. He saw Douglas and stopped quickly. Goodness me, he called. What on earth happened? Douglas explained what had happened, and Donald told him that they needed to get the loads to the docks before the lorries did. Don't worry, said Derek. I'll help you up the hill. The twins were surprised. You'll help us, even after what we said to you? It might have been my fault about that silly accident, but I'll still help you no matter what. And he buffered up to Douglas, and with a mighty roar of his engine, began to push. Easy, Derek, said his driver. Derek, however, pressed on further, and eventually the train began to move. And Donald found he could move the train again. Douglas, who had no steam left, could only cheer for his brother and Derek, who kept straining and pushing at the same time. Come on, encouraged the twins. We're doing it, called out Derek. With Donald huffing and puffing from in front and Derek straining from the back, it made everything so much easier. They even managed to pass the lorries, who stared in anger that Derek managed to help them. Douglas gave a wink to Derek, who in return winked back. They soon arrived at the docks, but by now, the engines were looking very tired. But they pulled into the docks right on time. Cranky and Salty stared at the train in amazement. Shiver me timbers, matey, cried Salty. How did you lot get this train without a single problem? Douglas smiled. You have Derek to thank there. Aye, agreed Donald. If it weren't for him, we'd never hear the end of it from the lorries. Derek, who was out of breath, could only beam. Soon the lorries drove in, tired and defeated. Well, they said, if there's one thing you engines showed us, is that how you all work together to get the job done. I'll put it in, sighed Donald. We'll let you off on this one. I don't see what's the difference between us vehicles and engines, said Derek. If anything, I'd say that we're both equal and really useful at the same time. All the engines and vehicles agreed, even Cranky.